What if the biggest scandal of the holiday season didn't come from the royal family, but from Hollywood Boulevard? What if the most unexpected showdown of 2025 didn't involve princes, world leaders, or billionaires, but an actor known for his calm charm and a duchess known for commanding attention? And what if the question everyone's asking, who invited her, wasn't just a meme, but the spark that ignited a firestorm? Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. It sounds unbelievable. It sounds dramatic. It sounds like the plot of a comedy gone wrong. But it happened. Or at least, witnesses swear it did. And that's where our story begins. Before we reach the moment when Luke Wilson gestures to security, that sharp, controlled motion that instantly went viral, we need to ask one thing. Why was Meghan Markle even there? Who told her she could step into the one event in Hollywood that prides itself on being tightly coordinated, fiercely curated, and absolutely allergic to last-minute surprises? The 93rd Annual Hollywood Christmas Parade was supposed to be peaceful, nostalgic, a night filled with floats, marching bands, charitable spirit, and family-friendly warmth. The kind of event where actors smile for cameras, wave at fans, then go home drinking peppermint hot chocolate. It was not supposed to be the stage for a confrontation, or a spectacle, or a royal-adjacent microdrama. Yet here we are. Isn't it strange how moments like these reveal more than hours of interviews or thousands of PR-crafted words ever could? Isn't it fascinating how a single action, a step, a glance, a refusal to move, can transform an entire evening into a headline? Let me ask you, the viewer, have you ever walked into a room where you instantly knew you weren't supposed to be there? That hot flush that crawls up your neck. That confusion when everyone else seems to know something you don't? Now imagine that, but in front of thousands of spectators, television cameras, live characters, Hollywood legends, screaming children, reporters, influencers, and, of course, your critics. This wasn't just an awkward moment. It wasn't just a misunderstanding. And it definitely wasn't just a misplaced guest. The tension you're about to hear, the tension that simmered beneath the bright red and green lights, is the kind of thing people whisper about for years. And the strangest part? No one can agree on how Meghan even got in. Some say she was escorted in by someone who thought she was supposed to be there. Some say she pushed through politely but firmly. Some claim she acted like she belonged wherever she walked. And a few, the boldest ones, swear they heard her say something that sent Luke Wilson over the edge. But let's not jump ahead. Let's rewind to the beginning. The energy building on Hollywood Boulevard, the performers practicing, the celebrities gathering backstage, the organizers pacing, and the flashes of cameras everywhere. Picture it. Red carpet rolled out, Christmas music drifting through the air, the sweet smell of caramel corn blending with that perfect December chill. Hollywood Boulevard shimmering under thousands of lights. Cheerleaders stretching, bands tuning instruments. Actors rehearsing their lines of charity-focused commentary for the broadcast. Everything was perfectly organized. Everything was perfectly timed. Everything was perfectly predictable, except for one arrival. And that arrival would change the tone of the entire night. But before Meghan even stepped foot in the restricted section, the one area absolutely off-limits unless your name was printed, stamped, certified, and verified on a very exclusive list. Something was already brewing behind the scenes. Organizers whispered about unexpected PR guests that some networks were trying to sneak in. Security scanned the crowd for influencers desperate for backstage content. There were murmurs about unapproved talent trying to position themselves near high-profile celebrities for photo ops. Hollywood has always been a game. But the parade? The parade is supposed to be different. It's supposed to be wholesome, joyful, predictable. A night free from controversy. Until it wasn't. So let's talk about Luke Wilson for a moment. Not the loudest actor in the room. Not the guy who seeks attention. He's not someone who starts drama. In fact, he's the opposite, the chill Wilson, the grounded Wilson, the one people say you could drop into the middle of chaos, and he'd calmly ask if anyone wanted coffee. And that's what makes what happened so shocking. Because when a man known for calm suddenly stiffens, frowns, and tells security, she's not supposed to be here, people notice. They really notice. Now, ask yourself this. What has to happen for Luke Wilson, a man who has handled paparazzi, Hollywood chaos, and celebrity nonsense for over 2 decades, to reach a breaking point at a Christmas parade? And not just quietly, but in a way that made witnesses gasp. Was it disrespect? Was it entitlement? Was it miscommunication? Or was it simply the last straw in a series of Hollywood frustrations people have been whispering about all year? We're going to get there. But we need to understand the setting, because the Hollywood Christmas parade is unlike any other event. This isn't the Oscars. This isn't a film festival. This isn't a red carpet gala where surprise appearances are normal. This is a family-centered tradition broadcast globally, filled with community performers, children's charities, and meticulously scheduled celebrity segments. Every person on that boulevard has a place to stand, a moment to wave, a float to ride, and a position to return to. There is no space for improvisation, no space for freelancing, no space for popping by. So when Meghan Markle appeared, seemingly unannounced, the first domino fell. But here's the twist. Some believe her appearance wasn't a surprise at all. Some insiders insist she was invited, just not by anyone with the authority to invite her. Others think she misinterpreted an outreach message. A few go even further. They believe she intended to create buzz, knowing holiday events offer easy viral moments. We'll explore all these possibilities. But imagine standing there, as Luke Wilson did, seeing a duchess entering the one area where no one, absolutely no one, enters without being cleared. Did he roll his eyes? Did he take a deep breath? Did he think, here we go again? Witnesses disagree on his reaction, but they all agree on one thing. He walked straight toward her, and that's where the energy shifted. Picture the cameras. Picture the fans. Picture the stunned volunteers who suddenly found themselves frozen, pretending not to stare. Picture the tension of two public figures standing inches apart under glowing Christmas lights that suddenly didn't feel cheerful anymore. What did Meghan say? What did Luke say? What did security hear? Why did the incident escalate so fast? Those answers are coming, piece by piece, moment by moment, because the buildup was slow, almost invisible, until it wasn't. But before we dissect their confrontation, you need to feel the atmosphere of the night, the stakes for the parade, and why one misstep could cause a ripple effect through Hollywood's tightly woven PR ecosystem. Events like this don't just run themselves. They are machines, carefully engineered, perfectly timed, staffed by hundreds of people who work for months to ensure everything goes right. And Meghan's presence, invited or not, threw the machine into chaos. You'll see it unfold. You'll understand why security hesitated. You'll understand why Luke Wilson, of all people, took the lead. You'll understand why the moment exploded online before anyone could control it. But first, let's enter the parade. I'm about to take you right into the heart of it. The excitement, the noise, the whispers, the confusion, the emotional heat rising under the cool December sky. Because once Meghan stepped onto Hollywood Boulevard, the countdown to confrontation began. And the next moment? The moment that shifted everything, the moment people cannot stop replaying, is coming. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. So let's pick up right where we left off. At the moment, everything felt like it was about to tilt. You know that sensation before a major scene shift in a movie? When the music softens, the camera zooms in, and you feel the hairs on your arms rise because something is about to flip the entire story. That's exactly what was happening on Hollywood Boulevard. People didn't realize it yet. No one expected tension at a Christmas parade. But there are always signs before an eruption, if you know where to look. Let's zoom into the boulevard. Let's place you right there, on the pavement, on that festive night. The marching bands were lining up. Floats shimmered with tinsel, gold ribbons, and thousands of LED lights. Performers held oversized candy canes and glittering angel wings. Children giggled in elf costumes, adjusting their hats and gloves. Reporters were doing last-minute sound checks. Camera operators were syncing feeds with production control. Volunteers held clipboards and radios, their breath fogging in the cool air. Everything was in motion. Everything was perfectly illuminated. But in the midst of all that cheer, a ripple of confusion passed through the backstage area. It started small. A security guard frowning at the credential list, then glancing up at the walkway. Another guard tilting his head slightly, whispering to a colleague. A volunteer subtly stepping aside, unsure if they should intervene. Someone unexpected was approaching. Someone dressed elegantly, confidently, walking with that practiced stride that said, "Yes, I belong here." Someone who drew eyes without even trying. Meghan Markle. Her outfit was sleek, winter chic. Fashionable enough to stand out, understated enough to look intentional, calculated enough to spark curiosity. She wasn't rushing. She wasn't sneaking. She wasn't blending in. No, she walked as though she had a purpose. But the question simmering under all those Christmas lights was simple. Did she? And that's the moment people began whispering. Was she on the list? I didn't see her name. Did production invite her? Who checked her in? Is she presenting something? Wait, was she announced? The answers were all the same. No, no, and absolutely not. Now, here's something you have to understand about Hollywood events. There are two versions of every guest list. The official one, printed, laminated, approved. And the unofficial one, the one people gossip about, improvise, scramble to adjust when someone powerful decides they want to drop in. But Meghan didn't fit either list. There was no segment waiting for her. There was no float assigned to her. No chair, no camera cue, no prepared introduction. So where was she headed? Right toward the restricted VIP staging zone. The zone only a handful of Hollywood A-listers, sponsors, broadcast talent, and parade ambassadors were allowed to enter. The zone where everything is tightly controlled. The zone where the public never gets in, no matter how famous they are. And this is where things get interesting. Witnesses disagree about what happened next. Some claim Meghan paused briefly when she reached the first checkpoint, as if expecting someone to greet her, as if someone had told her she'd be escorted. Others say she breezed past staff who were too stunned to react quickly. A few insist her security team looked equally uncertain, exchanging tense glances. But the effect was the same. Meghan entered a space she was not scheduled or permitted to enter. And at that exact moment, Luke Wilson looked up. He'd been mid-conversation with a parade coordinator, going over the timing of his opening remarks. He was relaxed, smiling, completely unaware that he was about to be drawn into the center of the year's most unexpected celebrity conflict. Witnesses say Luke's expression shifted subtly at first, eyebrows tightening, jaw clenching just slightly, posture straightening. You know that face you make when you see something you think is off, but you're not sure yet? That mixture of curiosity and concern? That was Luke. Then came the realization, she wasn't supposed to be there. And something in him snapped into professional mode. The same mode he uses on movie sets when things go wrong. The one people describe as efficient, calm, decisive. He excused himself, took a step forward. Another, and another. His pace was steady, not rushed. His shoulders squared. His eyes locked on Meghan. Meanwhile, the area around them started shifting like a domino pattern. Volunteers moving aside, performers slowing their steps, a stage manager whispering urgently into a headset, unsure if she should intervene. You could feel it. The anticipation, the confusion, the escalating tension. And here's the emotional contradiction of the moment. It didn't feel like hostility. It felt like something much stranger, a clash of expectations, a collision between someone who believed they had access and someone who knew the rules better than anyone. This wasn't personal for Luke. Not yet. It was procedural, protective, necessary. But that wouldn't last long. Because as Luke approached, Meghan turned. Their eyes met, and the entire energy of that festive night changed. Was it recognition? Was it surprise? Was it annoyance? No one agrees. Some say Meghan gave Luke a polite smile. Others insist she looked confused, as if wondering why he was walking toward her. A few dramatic witnesses swear she looked irritated. Though that could easily be projection, but everyone agrees on one thing. Luke greeted her respectfully. Witnesses recall him saying something like, "Hi Meghan, can I ask who brought you back here?" Or, "Hey there, this area is for parade talent only." Or, "Did someone escort you?" Different versions. Same tone. Polite, measured, concerned, professional. And here is where the story fractures. Here is where accounts start to diverge. Here is where truth becomes blurry under the pressure of stardom. Because Meghan allegedly responded with a line, one that shook the calm right out of Luke Wilson's bones. Some claim she said, "I don't need an invitation." Others say it was, "I was told I could be here." Or, "I'm just saying hello." Or the boldest version, "You know who I am." Whether she said any of those exact words, we cannot confirm. But the effect? Oh, the effect was immediate. Luke's demeanor shifted. Subtle at first, the eyebrows, the jaw, the posture. Then, unmistakably, a change washed over him like a cold tide. This was no longer a gentle inquiry. This was a boundary being crossed, a protocol being violated, a responsibility falling squarely onto his shoulders. Because Luke Wilson had a duty that night, to keep the parade running smoothly, to keep the broadcast on schedule, to make sure the planned guests stayed in their zones, to prevent chaos on live television. And chaos was exactly what was brewing inside Luke's mind. And remember, this is a man rarely ruffled. Calculations were happening fast. If he ignored the situation, cameras might catch it. If he allowed Meghan to stay in the restricted zone, producers would panic. If he delayed action, the entire parade could fall out of sync. So he did what few expected. He motioned to security. A small gesture. Quick, discreet, but unmistakable. The kind of gesture that says, "This needs to be handled now." And when security saw his signal, they reacted instantly, because a parade ambassador's directive carries weight. Especially Luke Wilson's. Especially at a live event. Security moved in. Swift. Controlled. Professional. And that's the precise moment when the situation shifted from awkward to explosive. Because Meghan didn't leave. Not immediately. Not quietly. Not submissively. She stood her ground. And that's when the night, the parade, the social media world, the press, all pivoted sharply. That's the moment phones started recording. That's the moment whispers turned into shouts. That's the moment staff realized they had a full-scale incident unfolding. But the worst part? This was only the beginning. Because what came next didn't just disrupt the parade. It sent shockwaves through Hollywood. And no one, not the organizers, not the celebrities, not the security team, not even Luke Wilson, was prepared for what happened next. What if I told you that the Hollywood Christmas parade, the most wholesome, family-friendly, peppermint-scented event of the year, was only minutes away from becoming the setting of a quiet, contained explosion? What if the parade that parents bring their kids to, year after year, suddenly became the backdrop for a showdown that no one saw coming? And what if the actors, producers, and organizers who arrived expecting nothing more dramatic than a marching band mishap suddenly found themselves in the middle of a moment that would go on to define the entire night? Let's not sugarcoat it. Let's not pretend what happened later was isolated, random, or accidental. Because if you look carefully, really carefully, you'll see the warning signs were already there long before Meghan took her first step on a Hollywood boulevard. They were subtle, buried beneath garlands and glitter, but they were there. And that's exactly where this chapter begins. Have you ever felt tension hiding beneath a cheerful surface? Like when someone at a holiday party is smiling, but their eyes tell a different story. That was the parade, bright, joyful, magical, and quietly trembling under invisible pressure. Let me take you right into it. The energy before everything went wrong. Hours before the parade, Hollywood Boulevard looked like it had been dipped in Christmas spirit. Lights draped over palm trees. Enormous ornaments hung from street lamps. Vendors selling hot chocolate, popcorn, glow sticks, and inflatable candy canes. Tourists taking selfies under giant wreaths. Performers warming up their vocals. And everywhere, the sound of marching drums. It was the sort of night where even cynical Hollywood insiders softened a little. Even the stressed-out producers allowed themselves brief smiles. Even the celebrities, the ones exhausted from a chaotic year of industry strikes, PR battles, and mental burnout, looked lighter. Children waited behind barricades, holding signs for actors they loved. Parents lifted toddlers onto their shoulders to give them a better view. Reporters tested microphones. Cameramen checked angles. Parade coordinators rushed around with laminated schedules. Everything was timed. Everything was taped down. Everything was as it had always been. And hidden in that comforting predictability was the first crack, the first clue that something unusual was brewing. Because behind the organized chaos backstage, whispers had already begun circling. Not about Meghan. Not yet. Not by name. But about someone unexpected. A VIP nobody could place. A last-minute addition that wasn't on any list. A question mark making security uneasy. No one knew who. No one knew what it meant. But you know Hollywood. They always sense when something's off. The cast of characters. To understand the tensions building beneath the surface, we need to look at the key players already gathering behind the scenes. Luke Wilson, calm, quiet, composed, Maybe the last man in Hollywood who doesn't pretend to be someone he's not. He was one of the parade's ambassadors this year, meaning he carried weight, authority, and responsibility. But the true shock? No one. Not the parade organizers, not the volunteers, not the producers, not even Luke Wilson, had any idea how quickly that invisible line would shatter. Let's go deeper. Let's rewind just a few seconds before her first step past that threshold, before the whispers sharpened, before the atmosphere congealed into uneasy anticipation. The first sighting. It happened near the North Side Barricade, one of the busiest entry points for performers and float teams. That's where a volunteer first spotted her. He was holding a clipboard, checking off names of marching band coordinators. He looked up, and his breath caught. You know the feeling when you see someone extremely famous in real life? Your mind goes blank for a second, your eyes widen, and your brain tries to catch up. That's what happened to him. He blinked once, twice, then whispered under his breath, "Is that?" Another volunteer leaned over. Her jaw dropped. She mouthed something that sounded very much like, "You're kidding." The problem wasn't her presence. Hollywood is used to stars appearing everywhere. The problem was where she was heading. Straight toward the most secure backstage artery of the event. The artery through which only approved talent could pass. And here's the part that made everyone stop. She walked like she belonged, like she was expected, like her name had been printed in bold at the top of every schedule. Confident, graceful, purposeful, unbothered. And that's the contradiction at the core of the night. Confidence versus authorization. See, events like this run on a delicate balance of confidence and credentials. You can be the biggest superstar in the world, but if your name isn't on that credential list, the staff will block you without hesitation. But this was Meghan Markle, a global figure, polarizing, magnetic, powerful, recognizable everywhere. Her confidence blended with her celebrity status in a way that disarmed people. It made them hesitate. It made them question their training. It made them ask silently, "Is she supposed to be here and we just weren't told?" And hesitation breeds chaos. 1 second of uncertainty from staff leads to 2 seconds of movement from the guest, which leads to 3 seconds of confusion, which leads to 4 seconds of the unexpected. And suddenly, someone is in the VIP zone who shouldn't be there at all. That's exactly what happened. The paradox of Meghan's presence. To some observers, Meghan looked like she was simply touring the area. To others, she looked assertive, intentional. A few even described her as gliding, like she was filming an entrance for a documentary. And this contradiction created the perfect storm. She didn't look lost. She didn't look nervous. She didn't look intimidated. She looked like a woman on a mission. That, right there, is what set the alarm bells off. Not loudly, not dramatically, not explosively, quietly, softly, like a candle flame flickering in the wind, subtle, but undeniably the beginning of something about to spread. Luke Wilson feels the shift. Meanwhile, Luke Wilson was in full ambassador mode. He wasn't thinking about security breaches. He wasn't expecting conflict. He wasn't scanning the crowd for royal-adjacent chaos. He was reviewing his intro lines, checking the parade order, smiling at kids in elf costumes, fixing a crooked garland hanging from a nearby float. But as he turned his head slightly, barely a millimeter, he saw 2 security guards whispering urgently, not panicking, not running, but communicating with that tight, worried precision that only professionals use. And Luke Wilson's instincts. The instincts of someone who had seen enough of Hollywood to know that whispers backstage rarely mean good things, kicked in. The silence before the wave. Moments before Meghan crossed the line into restricted space, everything seemed to hold its breath. The music softened. The crowd buzz blurred. The performers paused. A strange, hushed ripple spread through the boulevard like a low, invisible wave. It's the kind of silence that forms when hundreds of people feel, without understanding why, that something is about to happen. The kind of silence people experience moments before a celebrity meltdown, or a shocking announcement, or a paparazzi frenzy. That's when she stepped forward, crossed the boundary, entered the restricted zone, and the entire event tilted. The staff reaction. A coordinator gasped. A volunteer stiffened. A security guard tapped his earpiece. Another staff member quietly muttered, "Oh no, this is going to be a problem." Because the moment she stepped into that zone, Every trained staffer instantly understood one thing. Someone is going to have to handle this. And that someone would not want to be that someone. Dealing with celebrity entitlement is one thing. Dealing with mistaken access is another. Dealing with royal-adjacent misplacement is on an entirely different level. The unseen dominoes. What no one realized, not yet, was how many dominoes Meghan's presence would topple. Her step into the restricted area triggered a security alert, a protocol break, a broadcast timing concern, a staff communication scramble, a PR whisper chain, a visual distraction, a talent positioning disruption, a breach of parade flow, a boundary violation, and most dangerously, uncertainty. And uncertainty is where chaos is born. Luke felt it. Security saw it. Staff anticipated it. Cameras sensed it. Hollywood, even before Meghan and Luke exchanged their first words, could feel the tension tightening like a string pulled too far. The first look. It happened fast. Meghan moved deeper into the zone. Security stepped forward. A producer waved frantically. Luke turned fully, eyebrows lifting, his calm blue eyes taking in the situation. He saw Meghan. She saw him, and their gazes locked like magnets. This was the moment, the spark, the pivot point where the parade's destiny changed course. Not because of hatred, not because of personal history, not because of malice, but because of responsibility. Luke Wilson wasn't trying to create drama. He wasn't trying to embarrass her. He wasn't trying to assert dominance. He was trying to protect the parade. But this moment, this charged, delicate, electric moment, would set the stage for the confrontation that came next. Because Meghan did not slow down. She did not step back. She did not ask questions. She walked further in. And that's when the decision was made. Luke stepped forward. Security followed. And Hollywood, cheerful, sparkly, candy cane-coated Hollywood, braced for impact. Because the confrontation was unavoidable now. The question wasn't if. It was when. And what came next would push the parade to the brink, would spark a Hollywood-wide debate, would make headlines around the world. And it all started with 4 words Luke Wilson whispered as he approached. She shouldn't be here. But what Meghan said in response. That was the match that lit the fire. And the next chapter exposes exactly what happened when the two finally stood face to face, and the real tension began. What if the biggest mystery of the night wasn't the confrontation itself, but the moment before it? The moment Meghan Markle appeared on Hollywood Boulevard with the unmistakable confidence of someone who believed she had every right to be exactly where she was? And what if the question that set the entire night spiraling wasn't, what is she doing here? But something far more explosive. Who told her she could come? Because that's the part that still has Hollywood buzzing. The part that still sparks arguments backstage. The part that staff, security, producers, and even some celebrities cannot agree on. Did Meghan show up by mistake? Was she misinformed? Was she intentionally invited by someone without authority? Or was this part of a bigger strategy, a carefully timed appearance, meant to reignite relevance in the festive glow of Hollywood lights? This chapter digs into that moment, that entrance, and the swirl of contradictions surrounding it. Because the truth is this. Meghan Markle didn't arrive like someone who stumbled into the wrong place. She arrived like someone claiming her space. And that's the root of everything that followed. Let's break this down. The arrival that didn't match the night. Picture the boulevard again, bright, noisy, joyful, chaotic in all the right ways. Performers stretching, dancers warming up, camera crews adjusting their gear. Every few seconds, someone important arrives, an actor, a talk show host, a child star with their parents, a longtime television personality greeting fans. Then suddenly, the energy shifts. A sleek black car, not part of the parade's transportation plan, glides to a stop near an employee entrance. A door opens with that slow, calculated grace you see in movie premieres or major award shows. And out steps someone who instantly turns heads, Meghan Markle. Her hair styled, her makeup glowing in the Christmas lights. Her wardrobe perfectly chosen, elegant but understated, ceremonial but casual, festive but professional. She didn't look lost. She didn't look accidental. She didn't look like someone who just wandered in. No. She looked like a woman making an entrance. And that's what threw people off. Because most uninvited guests arrive cautiously or with uncertainty. They enter apologetically, sheepishly, checking badges, asking where to go. Not Meghan. She walked like someone with a destination. Which brings us to the first big contradiction. Contradiction number 1. The invitation that no one can verify. Within minutes of her arrival, 2 versions of the story began circulating among staff. Version A. She was invited by someone from production. Version B. She wasn't invited at all. Both versions had passionate defenders. Both versions had holes. Let's look at version A. Some staff swore up and down that Meghan mentioned an invitation, that she told them she had been cleared to enter, that someone from the organizing team reached out to her. A few even claimed they saw an email on her phone, though no one could confirm exactly what it said. But here's the problem. Not a single person from production, not the executive producer, not the assistant producers, not the booking team, ever acknowledged inviting her. Not one. And Hollywood events don't play around with this sort of thing. There are leads. There are assistants. There are coordinators. There are interns. Someone, somewhere, always knows who's supposed to be backstage. But no one had her name. Not anywhere. Not on the RSVP list. Not on the talent sheet. Not on the float assignments. Not in the guest coordinator's inbox. Not in the security clearance system. Now let's look at version B. If she wasn't invited, how did she get in? How did she pass security checkpoints? How did she slip into a restricted area? Staff members have replayed this part over and over. And here's the shocking part. Not a single checkpoint logged her. There should have been a badge scan. There should have been a credential check. There should have been an escort. There should have been a signature. There should have been something. But there was nothing. So what does that mean? Either someone waved her through out of intimidation, confusion, or hesitation. Someone with influence let her in quietly. Or Meghan believed, for whatever reason, that she already had access and did not need formal clearance. And that's where the theories start to multiply. Theory number 1. The harmless miscommunication angle. Some insiders insist this was simply a misunderstanding. Meghan may have received a casual, friendly outreach from someone affiliated with the parade, a performer, a partner, a sponsor, or even a friend involved in production, and interpreted it as an invitation. In Hollywood, this happens more often than you think. Someone says, "You should come." Someone else hears, "You're invited." Someone else shows up as if it's official. But the problem here is the scale. This wasn't a dinner party. This was a broadcast event with strict zones. A miscommunication this big would be extraordinary, but not impossible. Except, her behavior didn't match a misunderstanding. She didn't look confused. She didn't ask for directions. She didn't check in with staff. She didn't hesitate. She walked with certainty. Which leads to another possibility. Theory number 2, the strategic pop-in move. Hollywood PR experts quietly offered another explanation. She showed up knowing she wasn't formally invited. Because the optics of being there were worth the risk. A surprise appearance at a beloved holiday parade? Cameras everywhere? Fans everywhere? A perfect moment to regain public attention during a turbulent year? This would not be unusual. Celebrities, even well-known ones, sometimes appear at public events unannounced to increase buzz, generate spontaneous media attention, get photographed with top-tier Hollywood figures, reinforce relevance, spark conversation online, shift narratives, reclaim headlines. And let's be honest, a high-profile, controversial figure appearing at a feel-good public event? That's instant PR, for better or worse. But there's a catch. If this was a strategic pop-in, she miscalculated the environment. Because the Hollywood Christmas parade is not that kind of event. It is tightly controlled. It is meticulously scheduled. It is not a red carpet where surprise guests can float around. So if this was the plan, it was bold, but risky, and ultimately disastrous. Which brings us to the most explosive possibility. Theory number 3, she was invited, but by the wrong person. This is the scenario Hollywood insiders whisper about most. Someone, not an organizer, not a producer, not a coordinator, invited Meghan personally. Maybe a celebrity participant, a sponsor's representative, a float partner, someone from a charity organization, or a friend connected to the parade. Someone who thought their influence extended further than it actually did. Someone who assumed they had authority. Someone who didn't understand the rules. Imagine it. A casual text. A friendly, "Come by. You'll love it. We'll be backstage." A misunderstanding of epic proportions. This would explain everything. Why Meghan believed she belonged. Why she walked with confidence. Why she didn't check credentials. Why she didn't question the zones. Why staff were confused but hesitant. Why no one had paperwork. Why Luke Wilson reacted so sharply. Because if someone without clearance invited her, then she walked into the most restricted zone, with absolute certainty, based on absolutely no official authorization. A perfect storm. The confidence factor. Let's talk about Meghan's demeanor, because this is what witnesses keep highlighting. She wasn't sneaking. She wasn't timid. She wasn't searching for direction. She walked like someone who had been told, explicitly or implicitly, "You're welcome here." Her posture straight, her shoulders back, her steps controlled, her gaze forward, her presence unmistakable. And this is what created the internal conflict for staff. How do you stop someone who acts like she has access? Celebrities use this tactic, consciously or not, all the time. Confidence disarms gatekeepers. Familiarity slips past protocol. Authority overrides hesitation. Meghan embodied all three, which is why the entrance itself caused such chaos. The dress, the look, the signal. Here's something subtle but important. Her wardrobe played a psychological role. A tailored winter coat, elegant, simple, photogenic. A neutral color that blended with Hollywood's holiday glam. A polished hairstyle that looked professionally done. Makeup appropriate for cameras. This wasn't a look for anonymity. It wasn't a look for blending in. It wasn't a look for a private, low-key evening. It was a look designed for visibility. You don't show up camera-ready unless you expect, or want, to be seen. And that's what created the final contradiction. Meghan looked prepared, but production was unprepared for Meghan. And when those two realities collided, Hollywood Boulevard trembled. Because as she continued deeper into the restricted area, the night began tipping toward the moment we saw coming. Luke Wilson moving toward her. Security shifting position. Staff freezing in place. Eyewitnesses grabbing their phones. Tension tightening like a string. The parade was seconds away from breaking open. All because one unanswered question hung in the air like smoke. How did Meghan Markle get inside? And the moment Luke finally reached her, the moment he made contact, the night took a turn no one could walk back from. Because the question he asked her wasn't dramatic. It wasn't hostile. It wasn't rude. It was simple. It was direct. It was the one question that shattered the illusion. Who invited you? But her answer is what detonated the entire situation. What if the most dramatic moment of the night didn't begin with shouting, anger, or confrontation, but with a single step? Not a large step, not a bold stride, just a small shift forward. A literal foot crossing an invisible line separating order from chaos. A line no one else would dare cross. Because the restricted zone at the Hollywood Christmas parade isn't just a piece of pavement. It's sacred territory, a world within a world, a tightly guarded artery pulsing at the center of a massive live event. And that's exactly where Meghan walked. Welcome to the place where everything spiraled. Let's dive into the most important setting of the entire night. The exact location where the confrontation between Luke Wilson and Meghan Markle began brewing long before either of them uttered a word. The restricted zone, a place few ever see. For anyone who's never worked backstage at a major Hollywood event, it's easy to imagine the restricted zone as a few barricades and some staff with headsets. No, it's the command center, the beating heart, the nerve network that keeps the entire parade from collapsing into chaos. Imagine a narrow corridor of space carved out behind elaborate floats and decorated trucks, a stretch of pavement that looks unimportant to the audience but holds the entire show together. That's the restricted zone, and entering it without authorization is like walking into the cockpit of a commercial airplane mid-flight. Here's what you'd find inside. 1. VIP staging. This is where celebrities gather before being introduced. They're organized, lined up, prepped, and escorted on cue. 2. Crew-only technical paths. Cables, wires, microphones, cameras, and broadcast equipment run through here like veins. 3. Security checkpoints. Every few meters, guards scan badges and monitor entry and exit. 4. Float management areas. Each float waits in precise order. One out-of-place movement could derail the entire broadcast timing. 5. Production command corners. Producers cluster around monitors, stopwatches, radios, and paperwork. These teams know every second of the show. 6. Emergency lanes. These are kept open for safety, medical teams, fire marshals, rapid exit requirements. 7. The talent bubble. An invisible space that the public cannot enter and security cannot compromise. That was the zone Meghan wandered into. Uninvited, unchecked, unscheduled. And the moment she stepped inside, the stability of the parade trembled. How restricted is restricted? Every Hollywood insider knows the rule. If you're not on the list, you do not enter this zone. Not even the biggest stars in the world can bypass this. And tonight, that collision was about to happen between Meghan and Luke Wilson. But before we get there, let's rewind just slightly, because the moment she entered the restricted area, something crucial happened. The first warning signs. 3 staffers saw Meghan cross the invisible line. 2 hesitated. 1 acted. A junior production assistant named Lindsay, clipboard shaking in her hands, stepped forward instinctively to intercept Meghan. It was her job. She had been trained. She had been briefed. She knew the rules. But as she approached Meghan, something happened. Something subtle. Something psychological. The closer she got, the more her confidence slipped. Why? Because Meghan didn't look like someone who needed stopping. She carried herself like someone who had already been approved. She walked with the posture of someone expected. She moved like someone who belonged. And that confidence, it froze Lindsay. She hesitated, slowed, stopped entirely. In Hollywood, confidence is a passcode, a silent badge, a psychological key, and Meghan possessed it in full. So Lindsay stepped aside, let her through, and in that single moment of hesitation, the rest of the staff followed her lead. This is how a breach happens. Not with force, not with defiance, but with subtle authority. Meghan walked in. No one stopped her. No one questioned her. Because no one wanted to be the person who told a duchess no. The security angle. Now this is where it gets interesting. Security did not fail. Security did what security always does. They followed the energy of the room. And Meghan's energy said, I'm supposed to be here. Guards are trained to read confidence. It's part of crowd control psychology. When someone walks too confidently, too purposefully, and too comfortably, guards often assume, this person checked in earlier. But here's the twist. One guard, a man named Rodriguez, wasn't convinced. He saw the hesitation in his colleagues. He saw the confident walk. He saw staff unsure how to respond. And he did something most guards wouldn't. He checked the list. He ran his finger down the laminated sheet, scanning every name, every variation, every possible inclusion. She wasn't there. Then he checked the secondary list, the VIP Plus extended list. Nothing. Then he checked the digital log. Still nothing. Meghan Markle had not been approved for entry anywhere near that space. And that's when Rodriguez whispered into his earpiece. Possible unauthorized entry. Those words triggered a chain reaction. Security began shifting positions. Producers began looking around anxiously. Coordinators started scanning the zone. And Luke Wilson, standing just a few feet away, began to sense something was wrong. Luke Wilson feels the breach before he sees it. Luke didn't see Meghan at first. He felt the shift. He felt the sudden tension in the air. He felt the way staff froze. He felt the ripple effect moving across the zone. He heard the tone change in the security comms. He saw the stiff postures. He saw the widened eyes. He saw people staring in one direction. And Luke Wilson, a seasoned Hollywood professional, knew exactly what that meant. Someone important was out of place. Luke turned his head, and then he saw her, Meghan Markle, walking deeper into the restricted area. Not rushed, not apologetic, not confused, with intention. And Luke's entire demeanor shifted. He didn't gasp. He didn't panic. He didn't overreact. He simply understood. And understanding is what made him act. What made the moment so tense? The space itself. The restricted area Meghan entered was not a wide-open backstage field. It was narrow, crowded, packed with people who needed to stay exactly where they were. There were children lined up for procession, handlers holding props, cameramen adjusting rigs, Floats edging into position. Extras waiting for cues. Hosts rehearsing lines. Staff carrying equipment. Actors socializing. And Luke Wilson prepping his segment. When Meghan walked into that space, she disrupted the choreography. Imagine someone walking onto the stage of a Broadway show mid-performance. That's how shocking this was. Everyone, every single person, looked to the one figure who had the authority to act. Luke. That's why the confrontation happened in that exact place. That's why it escalated quickly. That's why the moment became legendary. Because the restricted zone is a pressure cooker. One misstep, one unexpected presence, and the entire backstage pipeline collapses. Luke had to act. And Meghan? She didn't flinch. The tension peaks. Security took 2 steps closer. Producers whispered into headsets. A coordinator said, "Should someone talk to her?" A volunteer said, "I'm not going near that." A float operator muttered, "Oh God, not tonight." And Luke Wilson, calm, composed, gentle Luke, inhaled deeply. Not in anger, not in panic, in preparation, because he realized something. Meghan was moving straight toward the most sensitive part of the restricted zone, the staging area where celebrity hosts gathered before going live. If she reached that corner, everything would unravel. Producers would lose their minds. Security would have to intervene forcefully. The broadcast timing would splinter. Luke had no choice. He stepped toward her. And that is when it began. The moment that witnesses still talk about. The moment that social media replayed millions of times. The moment the parade turned from a holiday celebration into a PR earthquake. And it all hinged on one thing. The line she crossed, and the line she refused to back away from. Because once Meghan reached that zone, there was no going back. And the next moment, the exact moment Luke finally called out to her, would ignite everything. Luke took that final step. The step that pushed him past hesitation and into responsibility. You could almost hear the subtle shift in air pressure as he closed the distance between them. People often say moments like this feel slow, like time itself drags. But witnesses swear this moment snapped into place with frightening speed. Because the moment Luke called out, quietly, calmly, but firmly, everything changed. "Excuse me, Meghan?" His voice wasn't loud. It wasn't confrontational. But it cut through the noise like a blade. Meghan stopped. Just like that. One moment walking, the next frozen, turning slowly toward him. A pivot filled with quiet confidence that made half the backstage freeze. Witnesses described the moment as electric. Silent. Tense. Like the atmosphere held its breath. Luke approached with that trademark Wilson gentleness. A soft expression, hands relaxed at his side, posture open. This wasn't a man looking for drama. This wasn't a man trying to embarrass her. This was a man doing his job. But Meghan's first words, the ones no one can agree on, are the reason the situation escalated. Let's break down the moment frame by frame. The stare that stopped the backstage. When Meghan turned, the first thing everyone noticed was her expression. She wasn't startled. She wasn't confused. She wasn't apologetic. She looked composed, calm, self-assured. Like a woman who believed her presence in that exact spot was justified. That expression alone was enough to rattle staff. They waited, breathless, to see how the exchange would unfold. Luke stopped just a few feet from her, giving a polite nod. "Hey, Meghan," he said quietly. "Just want to check. Did someone bring you back here?" He phrased it as gently as possible. He left room for misunderstanding. He gave her an easy out. But Meghan's reply, the one whispered about, debated, argued, didn't take that out. Some say she smiled faintly and said, "I don't need anyone to bring me." Others recall her saying, "I was invited." A few swear she responded with, "I'm just heading over there." And one staff member claims she said the line that ignited the night, "I'm allowed anywhere." We may never know the exact phrasing, but here is what everyone agrees on. Her tone conveyed certainty. Her body language conveyed permission. Her manner conveyed access. But Luke knew something she didn't. No one, not a single authorized person, had cleared her. And that's when his calm expression shifted. Barely, subtly, but unmistakably to those watching. He realized she genuinely believed she was allowed there. Or she wanted him to believe that she believed it. Both possibilities were dangerous. Both possibilities forced him to act. The moment everything snapped into place. After Meghan responded, Luke took a small step closer. A steady, controlled movement. Security tensed behind him. A producer whispered, "Oh no, he's going to address it." A volunteer whispered, "Should someone stop this?" Another replied, "No way. He's in charge." Luke's voice lowered, calm but firmer. "This is a restricted area. Only parade talent and approved VIPs can be here." He waited for her to step back. She didn't. He offered a small gesture toward the public area, a silent, polite invitation to return. She didn't move. Instead, Meghan held her position, poised, composed, immovable. A quiet standoff. A battle of presence, not words. And this is where witnesses say the atmosphere changed entirely. Staff sensed tension rising like static electricity. Performers felt the crackle of confrontation. Even children waiting for floats sensed something adult and complicated happening nearby. People stopped moving, stopped talking, stopped breathing. Because this wasn't a misunderstanding anymore. This wasn't hesitation. This wasn't confusion. This was a line being drawn. A line Meghan seemed unwilling to step back from. And a line Luke couldn't let her cross. The security waited for one thing. Security stayed at a distance at first. Why? Because they needed one very specific signal. A cue. A directive. From Luke. If he stepped back, they stayed back. If he raised his hand, they approached. If he nodded, they intervened. Hollywood security doesn't act blindly. Not with celebrities, and especially not with royals or royal-adjacent figures. And this made the moment even more tense. Meghan's posture said, "I belong here." Luke's posture said, "You cannot be here." Security's posture said, "We're waiting for the call." The whisper that started an avalanche. And then it happened. The moment staff members still talk about with wide eyes. The moment Luke Wilson leaned slightly toward the closest security officer and murmured, "She's not authorized." Two simple words. Softly spoken, barely audible, but explosive in impact. Because that whisper didn't just trigger a reaction. It triggered a protocol. A protocol designed to protect the parade. But one that would soon be interpreted by the public as a personal slight, a dramatic rejection, even an expulsion. Security straightened instantly. 3 guards stepped forward. The restricted zone tightened like a drawstring. And Meghan? She didn't step back, didn't apologize, didn't retreat. She looked at them calmly, maybe even defiantly, as if daring them to act. And that is the moment everything tipped. Because when a high-profile figure stands in a restricted zone and refuses to move, the situation is no longer a misunderstanding. It's a breach, a violation, a confrontation. Which brings us to the exact moment the night became a viral spectacle. The silence before the storm. A stillness settled over the space. Luke inhaled slowly, bracing himself. Security braced. Staff braced. Producers braced. Everyone present sensed they were witnessing something they weren't supposed to see. A celebrity boundary. A royal-adjacent conflict. A Hollywood crack in real time. And then, a loudspeaker blasted the countdown to broadcast. We are live in 1 minute. The worst possible moment. For tension. To ignite. Because now the parade wasn't just an event. It was a live national broadcast. And Meghan Markle was standing. In exactly the wrong place. At exactly the wrong time. With exactly the wrong expression. Luke knew the next move had to be made. Security knew the next move was theirs to make. Meghan knew eyes were on her. And the entire restricted zone waited. Frozen. Silent. Bracing. For the spark that would ignite the entire night. And that spark was about to explode in front of cameras. And there was no stopping it now. What would it take to shake a man like Luke Wilson? A man known for his composure. A man known for his quiet professionalism. A man Hollywood repeatedly describes as unshakable. What would it take to transform that steady, centered, easygoing demeanor into a moment of visible frustration, disbelief, and decisive action? Tonight, you're about to see the answer. Because the second Luke realized Meghan was not stepping back, not deferring to protocol, not acknowledging the restricted zone, something inside him shifted. Not out of ego, not out of anger. Out of responsibility. And that shift, subtle at first, then unmistakable, is the reason the night collided with controversy. Let's rewind to the exact second after his quiet whisper. "She's not authorized." Activated security positioning around them. Because right then, in that breath between tension and escalation, Meghan did something that no one expected. She smiled. Not a big smile. Not a sarcastic smile. Not a mocking smile. A small, composed, almost rehearsed smile. The kind a person gives when they believe they understand something others don't. And that was the moment Luke's internal balance cracked. The look that said everything. Witnesses say Luke's expression changed in stages. First confusion, then disbelief, then resolve. His eyebrows tightened slightly. The corners of his mouth pulled in. His posture straightened, no longer casual, now authoritative. He wasn't rude. He wasn't harsh. But he was done being gentle. And that's when he said it. The line that instantly rippled through the restricted zone like an electric shock. Meghan, you can't be back here. Not whispered. Not murmured. Not tentative. Clear. Firm. Unmovable. A line drawn in the pavement. Meghan's response changed everything. Meghan's eyes didn't widen. She didn't flinch. She didn't step back. Instead, she lifted her chin just slightly. A subtle movement, almost imperceptible, but loaded with implication. A shift in posture that said, I don't accept that. Witnesses swear she replied with one of 3 lines. I was told I could be here. Or, I'm not causing any trouble. Or, I'm here to support the event. Different accounts. Same tone. Assured. Confident. Dismissive of the conflict. What made the moment surreal was the contrast. Luke was grounded, focused on protocol. Meghan was calm, focused on her presence. 2 different realities colliding in one space. And the collision only intensified. An escalation without raising voices. Hollywood loves dramatic shouting matches. Tabloids thrive on screaming, pointing, explosive confrontations. But this wasn't that. What made the moment so shocking wasn't the volume. It was the quiet. The tight, tense, ice-cold quiet of 2 people asserting different forms of authority. Luke's authority was official, backed by production, protocol, security, and the parade. Meghan's authority was social, backed by fame, identity, and the belief that presence equaled access. And the 2 clashed silently, like tectonic plates grinding beneath the surface. Security sensed it. Staff sensed it. Even performers sensed it. Witnesses described the air as thick, pressurized, too still, charged, and most memorably, it felt like the moment before lightning hits the ground. Luke makes a decision he didn't want to make. Luke Wilson is not a confrontational man. He doesn't micromanage. He doesn't bark orders. He doesn't escalate unless he absolutely has to. But in that moment, with cameras moments away from going live, floats queuing up, children preparing to march, and producers counting down seconds behind him, he had no choice. He raised his hand. A small movement, barely noticeable. But to security, it was a command. 2 officers stepped closer, not touching Meghan, not intimidating her, not aggressive, just present. And that presence, that visible shift, is what finally cracked Luke's legendary calm. He had hoped she would simply walk back. He had hoped the misunderstanding could be resolved quietly. He had hoped she would respect the boundary. But Meghan didn't move. She stood her ground. And that's when Luke's patience turned into something else. Shock. Not anger. Not outrage. Genuine shock. Because never, in his decades of attending Hollywood events, had he encountered someone so unapologetically crossing a boundary that even A-list celebrities respected without hesitation. Even the highest-ranking stars know the rule. Restricted means restricted. But Meghan acted as if the word didn't apply to her. The internal battle playing out on Luke's face. You could practically see the equation happening in his mind. Option 1. Ignore the breach, hope nothing goes wrong. Impossible. The parade's live queue was seconds away. Option 2. Personally escort her out. Risky. Cameras were everywhere. Option 3. Wait for a producer to intervene. Too slow. They were all scrambling already. Option 4. Allow security to handle it. The only viable option. And that realization, that he had to involve security against someone who clearly didn't think she needed to leave, hit him harder than anyone expected. His expression tightened. His jaw clenched. His breath deepened. Shock turning into responsibility. Responsibility turning into inevitability. The word no one expected Luke to say. Security stepped forward. A staff member whispered, "Is he actually doing this?" A performer muttered, "Oh my God, she's not leaving." A cameraman whispered, "This is going to blow up." And Luke, with visible reluctance but absolute clarity, turned to the nearest guard and said, "Walk her out." Not shouted, not emotional, not harsh, just a directive. Firm, final, undeniable. And that moment, that exact phrasing, snapped the backstage into chaos. Meghan's reaction, a tiny movement that spoke volumes. She took one step back. Tiny, controlled, measured, not because she was intimidated, but because she realized something. Luke wasn't bluffing. Security wasn't confused. Staff wasn't uncertain anymore. The authority in the room had shifted decisively, away from her confidence, and toward Luke's protocol. And that is the moment witnesses swear her expression changed. Just a flicker, a shadow, a brief tightening around the eyes, but enough to show the truth. She hadn't expected him to escalate. Not like this. Not so calmly. Not so firmly. And that tiny reaction, that micro-expression, was the key that unlocked everything that followed. The backstage froze. Every single person in the restricted zone held still. Not a sound. Not a shuffle. Not a breath. Because the confrontation had reached a point of no return. Luke had made his decision. Security had begun moving. Meghan stood her ground, but the shift was happening around her. Witnesses were lifting their phones. The countdown to the live broadcast was hitting single digits. This was now a crisis. A quiet one. A controlled one. But a crisis nonetheless. And the shock that washed over Luke's face? It wasn't about Meghan's presence. It was about what he knew was coming next. Because once security approached her directly, once she had to choose between stepping back or resisting, once cameras captured their proximity, Hollywood wouldn't be able to contain it. No PR team could bury it.